Hello, my name's Laura Lear and welcome to the Thoughtful Leadership Podcast from Ambitious. So my guest today wears a number of different hats. Not only is she head of corporate banking for Lloyds Bank, she's also chair of the CBI for the South West, and as well as that is a mother of three. So I'm excited to have the conversation today. Welcome to the podcast, Carmen Peacock.
Thank you, Laura. That's great to be here. And it's my first podcast, so it's going to be quite an exciting conversation.
Definitely. Well, there's lots of different topics to explore. I think before we go into understand a bit more about your career path and how you've got to where we are, what gets you up? What is your passion?
Well, first of all, my 1.5-year-old gets me up in the morning very early, which is brilliant. And it's that desire to use my skills, my experience, my abilities, my networks to create value and add value in all the interactions I have, whether it's at home with the kids, whether it's in my friendship groups, whether it's with my family and in the business world as well. And I think that idea of feeling useful to the community you're in, to the place that you're in the context that you're in, is very exciting. So whilst I wear multiple hats, the thread that goes through it all is creating that element of value and adding value, connecting people, creating networks, driving an agenda, helping businesses grow, educating my children. So having that mindset of how do I create value in the context I'm in is really exciting.
I know South West is where you are now, but you've had national roles as well. I'd love to hear a bit about that career journey and what led you to where you are now.
Yes, so I've had an interesting career journey. I'm Romanian and I moved to the UK to study banking at university. I looked for university degrees that had banking in the title, and UE had economics of money, banking and finance.
Okay.
To me, I thought this sounds great. And it also came with a sandwich year. So I moved to the UK when I was 19, all by myself, and I spent my sandwich year in London at the Bank of England during the financial crisis, and that was fantastic.
That must have been some really good grounding.
Some really great stories that came out of that experience. But I also think being in the markets team and in the fire line, so to speak. I was preparing reports every day for the Monetary Policy Committee to review. It was a very dynamic environment, full of energy, lots of new things happening, and I learned a lot in that year. I met my husband whilst I was at uni and then decided that our home is the South West. So I then looked for corporate banking roles as a graduate. I joined RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, here in Bristol. I spent a few years in that team. I trained as a coverage banker, which is a relationship banker, but also spent 2 years in the financial sponsors team, helping private equity businesses buy other businesses and funding them with debt. I then moved to Santander, where I worked in the structured finance team, and I worked with businesses from SMEs requiring growth capital to private equity-backed businesses to large corporates as well, and looking at how do we fund complex debt across the whole spectrum. And from Santander, I moved to Lloyds. I had various roles within Lloyds. Most remarkable were working in the corporate and institutional debt team, being the national responsible lead for consumer, healthcare and tech sectors. I picked up that role 2 months before the pandemic, thinking these are nice, lovely sectors. And the pandemic hit, and my team and I were at the heart of the pandemic response with emergency liquidity facilities, with CL bills, coronavirus business interruption loans. I think we did the UK's first CL bills, and then we did 11 afterwards. We became the go-to expert on that product. And we supported over 100 businesses in that time period. And the liquidity that we provided was north of 4.5 billion. So it was a significant moment in my career at that time. And after that, I became the head of private capital for Lloyds Bank, which is looking after a team in London, covering nationally businesses owned by ultra high net worth individuals and family offices. And we did this for about 5 years. And that was a business that grew quite nicely. And in the last few months, I've been the regional head for South West and South Wales, doing something that I was doing on the side of my desk for the last 4 years, but moving into this full time. And as part of my regional head responsibilities, I have been asked to be the chair of the CBI in the South West, so connecting and being that voice of regional business with central government and inputting into different policy activities that the CBI are doing. I've also picked up a non-executive director role with South West Investment Group, and that's been really exciting because now I can sit in front of my own clients in Lloyds and know how it feels to be in front of a board and part of a board and all the governance that comes with it, and all the dynamics that come with it. It's very, very interesting. So I get a sense now in my day job of how SMEs are feeling through my SWIG non-exec role, how mid-markets and large corporates are feeling through my CBI role, and how the very large corporates in the region are feeling through my day-to-day job. So I get to have quite a complete picture of temperature.
Absolutely. And South West is a bit of a hotbed of investment as well at the moment. Lots going on, really exciting development. Can you talk a bit about kind of why it's such a dynamic region?
I think South West already has all the ingredients in place to be a thriving, growing, investable region, and what we consider the best place to live, work, live, and learn as well. So we have a really great further education and higher education ecosystem, and that is kind of the basis of our South West economy and offering. We have some world-class universities, and they are the hotbed of research and innovation, and that's amazing. We also have some incredible businesses in aerospace, advanced manufacturing, IT, creative industries, financial services, professional services. So we have a really nice blend of sectors, which they're either the national or international clusters in their own specific industries, or second after London, for example. So we are already starting from a really, really strong base. We're also supported by a really good everyday economy, with over 50% of people engaged in that as well. So it's a very nice, diverse mix. We also have the highest rate of growth outside London, especially in this WECA region, which is a fantastic point to say and share. And we have really great success stories of businesses who have been growing from seed to multinationals here in the region. We have a really great ecosystem of equity and debt products, from startup to very large corporates. It can be provided with business through firms and professional firms and bankers and equity firms based in the region. We have a great professional services community. We have great advisory, consultancy businesses, legal advice. You can do any type of transaction or deal here in the region because we have that human capital and expertise. And we just want to build on this. And I think this is why it's really important here in the Southwest to think that we're not starting from scratch and we're not trying to create a brand new industry. We actually have a really strong foundation to build on. And it's all about collaborating and partnering and telling the same story and attracting investment by being bold in our ambition as well.
Yeah, no, and I've been to a few events recently, some really exciting kind of, partnerships and collaborative kind of activity going on with the likes of BTQ and Bramazon and things like that. So it's really interesting to see all of that sort of happening on your doorstep. I'd love to go back a little bit to your sort of banking career as well. And, as a female, the banking world has always felt like to the outsider, a very male-driven world. Have you felt that? How have you seen the financial banking space change over your career? And how have you overcome any barriers?
I think this is a wonderful question. And I think there is an internal context and then it is an external context. And I think in the internal context, I felt very supported as a female banker in all the institutions I worked in. I felt I was having the same opportunities as everyone else, and I had the opportunity to deliver and do a good job in all of my roles. So internally, it's always been fantastic. And actually in Lloyds, we have really great stats on senior female leaders, and we have role models, and you can see what it looks like up there. Like, we already have those role models in leadership, and it's great to have that. But when you look at the external context, and I was reflecting on this in the other week with International Women's Day and week, when I started in banking and I would go to client meetings or management presentations, I remember distinctly I went to London one day to look at a business in the South West, but all the advisors were in London. And there was a big boardroom table, and there were about 24 people around that boardroom table, and there were 2 females around the boardroom table. There were different banks, there were different advisors, there was the management team there. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. 2-hour meeting talking about this business. The other lady didn't say a thing throughout the whole meeting, and I felt compelled to actually at least ask a question. I was very junior at the time, but I felt if I'm earning the right to be at this table, I need to contribute. I need to find a way of either moving the conversation to a place where it adds value, or ask a question, or try and understand the point that would help everyone. Because this is how you just explain or why you are here, why do you have that right to be at the table. And that's been kind of an eye-opener moment for me, having that experience about 15 years ago. But what's interesting is, even now in this external context, I still go to management meetings where I am the only woman around the table. And I probably know everyone around the table, and I have really great work experience. They're my colleagues, they're people I admire, I respect. But it still strikes me that I'm still the only woman in some rooms. And I think I haven't figured out how to solve that yet. But I do think I have a responsibility to try and bring other colleagues, other ladies up on the same journey as me, and show it can be done, and we have a right to be at the table and use our voice and contribute and create value through what we're saying. I was very encouraged the other week. I went to a meeting in WECA, and there were only women there, and it was fantastic. It was almost strange, but in a beautiful way. So I was very encouraged by that. So depending on the context and the situations, there's going to be varying degree of diversity, but I still see it in my day-to-day role that it's mainly men. It's very rare to have that many ladies on around the board table.
Yeah, it sounds like you've had a positive experience in the kind of banking finance world around culture, in terms of the cultures you've worked in. So again, there's always that, there's sweeping statements in the media, aren't there, around some of these large banking institutions and the kind of the cultural kind of setup and challenges there. So it sounds like actually it's been very positive for you, and I think a lot of workplaces have done a huge amount to move that on anyway in the last sort of 10 years.
Yeah, and I also think we create the culture around us as well through our role modeling of behaviors and through getting to know people for who they are and valuing them as well. And I think that's just been really important for line managers to take the time to really get to know their team, to really get to help their development journey as well, and invest in those teams. That makes a huge difference. And I've had some fantastic line managers over the years, but I've also been in teams where it's been a healthy culture, and I've had good role models to learn from as well.
That's amazing. And you talked a little bit when we spoke before about AI as well, and what's happening in a lot of businesses at the moment, particularly larger corporates. And obviously, again, there's lots of headlines, aren't there, that large corporates are making sort of sweeping changes bringing in AI. What's your view on kind of how AI is being mobilised across the board in some of the bigger businesses you're working with, and also from your own experience?
So again, there's an internal and external context here. So I think internally in Lloyds, we have declared Bristol the AI capital of the UK, and we are actually really investing in everything from apprenticeships to the hiring of data experts, in the Southwest, and it's fantastic to see that. And we're using AI on a daily basis, and we actually have some really significant productivity gains already measured as a result of that. So we're fully embracing it, and we're probably one of the largest financial institutions in the UK who have made that investment and commitment. And I think by the end of this year, all of our employees will be trained in responsible AI. That's 67,000 people. So it's great to see that. When I speak to businesses across the region in the various forums I'm involved with, you have businesses who have been early adopters and they've been using AI for the last 2 to 3 years, and now they're changing their business models as a result. They're seeing where they're gaining efficiencies. They might have natural attrition, but not replacing some of their workforce because they have made some efficiency gains, and or they're looking at different admin functions that could be done better with AI that, again, doesn't have necessarily an impact on creating redundancies, but it's more of a productivity focus and lens. But then you also have businesses who don't even know where to start. And we ran a really good event for our clients last year with PwC and CBI to try and get that conversation going of where do you actually start as a business when you engage with AI? What do you just buy a ChatGPT license or a Copilot license, or do you actually think about it more holistically at how it influences all the areas of your business, and how do you design it for you as a business to get the most out of it as well, because every business is unique. So that conversation was really good, and it continues to happen across various client networks and business networks in the Southwest. We really want to encourage businesses to think about how can they use technology to help themselves grow, and also how to help themselves increase their profitability and productivity as well. So we're very much open to it.
And you also do, you said before, some work with the smaller businesses as well, and growing scale-up businesses as well as at the corporate end. And we know there's a hotbed of entrepreneurism in the Southwest. But there's also quite a lot of stories always, again, more national headlines around, is the UK, giving entrepreneurs and businesses the right start? Is it easier to go to the US? What's your view on that?
So I don't have specific examples of businesses consciously relocating to the US, but my view is that the SME sector, well, it's 99% of the businesses. So we do need to make sure that they have the ecosystem to grow and to thrive. And with my Southwest Investment Group hat on, when we look at the fact that the British Business Bank are offering government guaranteed loans to help startups and to help SMEs, but you don't see, so you see the funding there, and that's fantastic, and you see some really, really great and positive changes happening in releasing funding and making funding available. Do we see all the SMEs queuing up at the door to access it? Probably not, and I think that's more of an awareness issue. So when you have owner-managed businesses where the founder is the CEO and the head of sales and of marketing and director of operations and wears so many hats, how do you access that awareness piece? How do you know where to go if you need a different type of funding? How do you know how to structure that funding? And working with different companies across the Southwest on investment readiness, for example, or that element of visibility and educating SMEs that you can have so many options and they're all pretty much on your doorstep, and they all come with government guarantees, which makes it easier to deploy that financing. I think that is quite key. So
people not knowing where to go is the biggest challenge, and that awareness. And do you think there's also still a bit of that nervousness, and we're a bit more risk averse as well, in terms of there are a lot of people who start businesses who don't want to take on debt and take that or take any form of investment, because they want to keep their business to themselves completely and try and build it organically?
I think it would be amazing if that's what they wanted to do, because that means they have the capital and equity capital to support themselves through it. What we see quite often is that especially in startups, you have owners who fund and bankroll their business on their credit cards, on their personal credit cards, and they take a huge amount of personal risk. Whereas there are specific startup loan schemes that can help them not take that amount of risk themselves, and it's probably significantly cheaper than credit card interest rates as well. So I think we're trying to speak to that demographic, and also to businesses who've never taken debt before, but they want to go from A to B, and it involves some investment. And we can work alongside businesses to look at what is the appropriate amount of investment. Is this actually a good idea? Is it going to pay off? Can we encourage you along the journey? It's not simply just a debt product. It's how does this help you achieve your strategy and your growth? And if there are businesses who don't want to take on debt because they feel sufficiently capitalized and they want to do their own thing, then that's great as well. So the debt product comes in when there is a genuine need for growth or for de-risking personal credit cards for startups in particular. So
feels like there needs to be that kind of, if you are an entrepreneur with an idea and maybe you're starting to mobilise it and you want investment, for example, or you want to look at the different funding options, there feels like there needs to be this one-stop shop, doesn't there, that gives you all of the information, and maybe there is, but again, people don't know where to go.
Exactly, and I think, for example, on the British Business Bank website, you can see all of the providers across each region of community development financial institutions, CDFIs, like South West Investment Group, where you know where to go and to access. But it's that first step of, I need to go on the British Business Bank website to read a bit about it. Or it's also about whose advice do I take? Do I surround myself with professional advice, or do I just use what my mates did?
Friends and family, isn't it? A lot of people default to.
And they might not be as up to speed on everything that's available today to businesses. So, we also have in Bristol and in the Southwest a really great incubator network as well. So I think if businesses aren't sure where to go, they should contact one of the incubator facilities, because I do think those are the places where they can network with similar founders in similar spaces, or access advice in terms of, let's just sense check this strategy. Will this make sense? Will this work? Will this actually result in growth? Or who do I need in my network to help me go from A to B? Which contacts do I need to make? What networking events do I need to go? Because I can't go to everyone because I'm CEO and CFO and
mother, father.
So and those networks is what we also want to help businesses have as well.
So there's a lot there. It's just understanding where to go, really, and that awareness piece. And obviously things in the Middle East, that's, it feels like there's one thing after another at the moment, isn't there, in terms of the economic impact of kind of global challenges and geopolitical issues. So have you seen that? Is that slowing things down? And do you see that as having a real impact? No one knows quite what's going to happen, how long it's going to go on for.
Yeah, I think the impact of the conflict is obviously mixed across businesses in different sectors. And geopolitics now is becoming a board level issue. Even if you are a UK-based business only with UK customers, you still have some form of exposure to what's happening geopolitically around the world. So ignoring geopolitics is not an option anymore. But what I've seen initially in terms of impact is, again, concern for the people who work in the Middle East and who live there, especially for businesses who have an active presence there, and especially for businesses who work with suppliers there and have business connections there. The first response has been, our staff, our contacts, our business partners, are they safe? And I think that human response has been amazing and fantastic. And the fact that businesses have thought of ways of mobilizing their staff, relocating them, giving them all the technical access that they need to work from home, or if they needed to fly or travel anywhere else to facilitate that. I think that response has been fantastic. And the second part of this is, how do we risk mitigate for the impact? And I think that's intrinsic to every single business that is directly impacted. There are businesses which, for example, in travel, they might benefit from a surge in European holidays instead of Middle East holidays. Or there might be businesses where their whole supply chain it's up in the air because of what's happening there. So I think it's about understanding the individual circumstances of each business, but actually also giving businesses that reassurance that as a banker, as a professional advisor, we are here to be alongside them and flex what we can to support that as well. And it's interesting that businesses now are used to having crisis after crisis after crisis. Sometimes it's crisis at the same time, and a lot of uncertainty. But we were at a business leaders meeting yesterday, and we were talking that actually all this volatility and uncertainty also creates opportunity. And there will be businesses who will think, okay, plan A is not going to work anymore. What else can I do to create value? I still need to deliver value for my shareholders, and I still need to make sure that the business continues to grow. How do I pivot now? And the early thinkers in that conversation will be the businesses that will thrive as well and continue to thrive despite of what's happening around them.
No, absolutely. No, we see it a lot as well in our business, but it feels like there's the slow decision making at the moment because people don't want to necessarily commit because they're just thinking what's going to happen next. But as you say, it's been going on for a while. We've always one thing after another in terms of uncertainty. So I'm sure one other question I wanted to ask you today was, how do you do it all? Because you're obviously a mother of three as well, which is arguably the largest role. And you're moving around, having to go, as you said, to breakfasts, to dinners, manage a family. But how do you do it all?
Well, first of all, credit to my husband and the family around us, because it's a village. It takes a village to raise a family, and we are very fortunate and blessed that my parents and my in-laws live in Clevedon. We live in Clevedon, and we have everyone involved in our children's lives and upbringing. And takes a bit of military organisation on who's on rota, who's doing pickups, who's doing drop-offs. But we get there, and actually that really, really helps. And what also helps is having really good supportive employers that understand the need for flexibility. And sometimes you just get the phone call that you need to pick them up because they have been unwell at school or at nursery. You have to go. And having that adult trust and support from your employers is really important as well. Having good teams around that understand that, and just managing the diary, which sometimes works. Sometimes you can have some crazy weeks, but it's working together as a team, working together with a family, working together with the village around, and we kind of get some balance. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's amazing to hear that, the likes of large organisations like Lloyds are very focused on people, and, that trust is so key, isn't it, in terms of valuing your people to do the job and to trust them to do it. And as you say, life happens, doesn't it, around you? You have to kind of, it's going to be interrupted at times.
Yeah, and I think having that culture of support around you is absolutely vital, because this is how you will motivate your teams to actually know, okay, if something happens, my team will be around me. You also motivate and create that sort of human first approach, people first approach, where life happens, but clients understand that, and professional advisors understand that, because we're all human after all. So yes, it's an interesting stage of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's been great to talk to you today. So many different topics covered. So really appreciate your time out of your very busy schedule. So thank you very much for joining us today.
And thank you for the invitation. It's been an absolute pleasure.